What's up, everybody? Stacey Blackwood here from the Tide Talk Podcast, joined as always with my good buddy Jake Thomas. Jake, what's happening, brother?
Man, I don't know. Everything's good on my end, but I don't know what's stranger, Alabama's weather or Alabama's basketball season this year. Man,
They
it's
have both
insane.
had their ups and downs over the last few days.
Oh my gosh, we went from 70 degrees yesterday, and then overnight it turned down to 30, and we got about it maybe an inch of snow, inch and a half somewhere in there, but it's insane, brother.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you said, the warm weather yesterday, and then you wake up to snow on the ground this morning.
Hmm.
And like you said, that's a lot like the Alabama basketball team for this season. Several ups and several downs, and you never
Hmm.
know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I know, man. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. That's for another discussion. What's on the agenda today, brother?
Yeah, we're gonna be looking. Spring practice started yesterday, just the one practice. Now they're gonna be off for spring break, but uh,
Hmm.
football season is not the season, but football is back, and we kind of
Yeah.
can look at some of the position groups here for Alabama. There's a lot of question marks entering the season, but I think the biggest question mark is the offensive line, Jake. And before we dive into how we think that's going to play out over the course of the spring, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, give this video a huge thumbs up, and we want to hear from you guys in the comment section. Let us know who you think the starting five offensive line is going to be, as of this moment here in the comment section. So we would appreciate that and would love to interact with you there in the comment section. But Jake, let's just look at this offensive line group. Of course, Evan Neal, projected number one overall pick or top five pick at least
Yeah.
here in April in the NFL draft. But uh, also losing Chris Owens. So there's a couple spots open along the offensive line. You have to think that Javion Cohen, Emil Ekiyor, and probably Seth McLaughlin are all going to have a spot there along the offensive line. Where they're at is a question mark. I think Seth is going to be the starting center. I think he did good enough filling in for Darian Dalcourt down the stretch of the season last year. And now with Dalcourt out this spring, I think that just further solidifies Seth's spot there at center. So,
Hmm.
Emil Ekiyor is going to be at one of the guard positions, whether it's right guard or left guard. He's going to be the starter there. And of course, Cohen can probably play tackle. We saw him play left guard last year with Evan Neal at left tackle. So there's three guys there that we feel pretty confident about. So that leaves two open spots there along the offensive line. And I think that's probably two positions that every Alabama fan is wondering about and has questions about. And I'm really excited to see how it plays out this spring. Uh, what are you looking at, Jake? Who are a couple guys or a handful of guys that you're looking at to play those other two positions along the offensive line?
There's several guys that can definitely step up and take those spots. One of the keys I think that we need to do is get a couple, three or four guys ready for, because you never can tell what's going to happen injury wise. Somebody can get hurt, and you got to plug somebody. And we had a six man last year. We had Damian George who played a little bit. Chris Owens when he was struggling, George filled in, and then George kind of struggled, and Chris Owens went in. But we at least had somebody to step up and have some playing experience during that time. And then we had Dalcourt get hurt. Owens went back to right tackle after playing center some, and had Seth come in. So we need some depth and some experience down down in offensive line. But the guys who could probably step up, I think, of course, is J.C. Latham. I think he's the guy that can step up and take one of the tackles positions. And looks like Damian George has leaned up a little bit. He's gotten a little bit quicker on his feet from just a little bit that I saw. So maybe he can take another tackle spot. And if those two guys can work out there, I think that this offensive line is going to be really, really good this year, especially with Ekiyor, McLaughlin, and Cohen coming back.
Yeah, Damian George, like you said, he's dropped some weight. I think he
Hmm.
went from around, right around 338 to about 333
Hmm.
when he reported for spring practice. So I think he's probably going to continue to lose some weight. I think they're hoping that he can play around 325. So definitely getting quicker is important for him because we saw what happened against Auburn with their speed on the edge.
Yeah.
He just got whipped, and it's because
Hmm.
he lacked the quickness and explosion to keep up with those guys. But he is a guy to watch out for. You also have to remember that Tommy Brockermeyer is a highly coveted kid,
Yeah.
a five-star tackle prospect, and he missed the majority of last season because of injury, and that really hindered his development. But he's a guy to look out for. So there's a handful of guys that could play one of those tackle spots. I'm looking for J.C. Latham to maybe start the spring out at left tackle, maybe keep Javion Cohen there at left guard, Seth at center. Of course, Emil Ekiyor will keep his right guard position. And then a guy that not many Alabama fans are talking about is Kendall Randolph, Jake,
Yeah.
at right
That's another
tackle.
one.
And Coach Saban talked about him last night in his press conference after the first spring practice. And, he's a guy who's coming back for his sixth year. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. He's played some tackle. He's played some tight end, but he has experience. And people forget, Jake, going into fall practice last year before he got injured, he was projected to be the starting right tackle for
Yeah,
Alabama.
that's
So
true.
it's not far fetched to believe that Kendall Randolph could be that guy, because we all know that Saban loves players with experience, with
Mhm.
leadership qualities, and Kendall Randolph exemplifies that. So
Right.
he's a guy to look out for. I'm not saying he's going to be the starting right tackle when September 3rd rolls around and Alabama plays Utah State, but I think he's a guy to look at there at that right tackle position.
Yeah, like you said, he kind of gets lost in the back burner, but he was, as I was talking about earlier, he was also coined as the sixth tackle last year, or
Right.
sixth offensive lineman. So yeah, he does have some experience. So that's something to look forward to, and this spring to see, maybe he can step up and take over that right tackle position. If he can, then all we got to worry about is that left tackle, that blind side for Bryce. So we get somebody solidified there. And like I said, I think this offensive line is going to be a lot better, because I don't want to keep harping on the guy, but Doug Marrone, his scheme just didn't work here at Alabama. So I think coaching the new coach, if his name escapes me, I think I
Eric
think
Walford.
yeah, Walford, he's going to come in, and I think there's going to be just a better sense of how offensive lines should be ran during the game, and I think they're going to be a lot better.
Well, you got to remember, and we talked about it before, Marrone is a long-time NFL guy.
Right.
It's different coaching college players. Marrone's a really good offensive line coach. In fact, he's a great offensive line coach.
Yeah.
He just didn't fit well at the college game at this point in his career. I think Walford is a guy, you've seen what he's done with the Kentucky offensive line. They have
Hmm.
had one of the better offensive lines in the SEC, and he's a guy who I think brings a really good college concept to that offensive line position group. And I'm excited to see what he does in his first season there. And he's got a lot of guys to play with. He's got
Yeah.
a couple spots open to kind of look at. And of course, he and Coach Saban will come down and make those decisions throughout spring practice, then of course over the summer and as they get into fall camp. And so that's really something to look forward to. And excuse me, but from today until September 3rd, we could see a wide variety
Yeah.
of a starting five offensive line group. So a lot can change from now until September. And the truth is, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a guy like Tommy Brockermeyer end up being the starting left tackle once fall arrives. So I think it's something to look forward to. I think right now my projection is from left to right, it's going to be J.C. Latham, Javion Cohen, Seth McLaughlin, Emil Ekiyor, and then Kendall Randolph. But I think once the season starts on September 3rd, I think you're looking more like Tommy Brockermeyer, Javion Cohen, Seth McLaughlin, Emil Ekiyor, and then J.C. Latham at right tackle. That's who I think could start, day one or opening day of the college
Mhm.
football season, which is a lot different than what it looks like right now because there's a lot that can happen. Injuries, uh, transfers. You never know what happens when it comes to that, and there's a lot of time between now and September.
Absolutely. And one guy like you mentioned, he's not going to, he didn't practice because he's kind of out this spring, but Darren Dalcourt, Saban and the guys are still high on him. So, you know, he might make his way back into that lineup if we decide to move Cohen out to left tackle. He might either slide back at center and move Seth over to guard, or vice versa. So, that might be something to watch out for as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't really thought about that much, but with Dalcourt out this spring, that really hinders his progression
Right.
and making a move on the offensive line. Of course, anything can happen in fall camp.
Mhm.
So but he's obviously a talented guy that the coaching staff likes. I mean, he started 11 games last year as a center before he, got injured. So
Mhm.
he is definitely a guy to look out for once fall camp arrives. But it's unfortunate for him that he's going to be out this spring.
Absolutely, but he will give us a depth option on the bench if like I said, if injuries happen, he can pretty much go in and play. He could be in a you take over at a guard or the center position if need be. So that's one thing I really want to see built this spring and this fall is depth along that offensive line because that them big old boys, there's a lot on their knees, so they're there's a lot of keep up on them boys. So there's injuries that can happen along that offensive line.
Yeah, and there's two guys that are most likely tackles, maybe could play guard if need be, that we haven't even talked about.
Hmm.
One is a veteran and Amari Kite, Jake, at 6'7",
Yeah.
well over 300 pounds. He's a tackle, most likely. And then an early enrollee, Jake, Tyler Booker, who I'm really high on. I think down
Hmm.
the road is a future first-round draft pick from Alabama along the offensive line. A big guy already, around 6'5", 320, 325. So can play guard or tackle. We've seen Saban in the past start these younger players out at guard,
Yeah.
let the veterans play tackle, and then kick those guys out to tackle later in their career. We saw it with Evan Neal. We
Hmm.
saw it with Alex Leatherwood.
Yeah.
We're probably going to see that with J.C. Latham because we saw Latham play right guard behind Emil Ekiyor when Ekiyor was injured last year. So
Hmm.
uh, we've seen Saban do that in the past, and I can see that happening with Tyler Booker. I'm really high on that guy, and he could make some noise this spring along the offensive line. So it's not a numbers issue for Alabama. It's
Hmm.
just about those guys stepping up and taking over those spots along the offensive line. So who were going to be the guys? Saban's always talked about the quarterbacks taking the bull by the horn.
Right.
It's time for some of those guys along the offensive line to take the bull by the horn and really take ownership of those open positions.
Absolutely. Because like you said, it's not a numbers issue. It's just getting the guys out there with experience and like you said, grabbing the bull by the horns and taking over those spots that are still open.
That's right, and
Hmm.
and there's like I said, we feel comfortable that Cohen, McLaughlin, and
Hmm.
Ekiyor are probably going to be somewhere along the offensive line. So there's two guys that are fighting for, or there's several guys fighting for two positions. So
Hmm.
that's going to be probably the most interesting battle here in spring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we was going to kind of make this focus on offensive line, but we can touch a little bit on spring, overall and what we just
Right.
saw a little bit of yesterday. But one of the things that I think I mentioned this week in our chat, but I'm already impressed with Jaheim Otis. I mean, he looks lean, mean, like just fixing to kill a quarterback machine. I mean, he has come in and he has done what he needed to do, and he looks like he wants to make an immediate impact. And a big boy like that, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he probably can. I
Well,
mean,
Alabama needs some playmakers
yeah,
along that defensive line.
hmm,
Fedarian Mathis is
it's
gone.
gone.
He was really the disruptor
Hmm.
of the guys on the interior of that defensive line. So we need somebody to become that type of player. So
Hmm.
that's going to be another position group that there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of experience returning.
Yeah,
But where is the disruptor going to come from outside of Dallas Turner and Will Anderson on the edge?
right.
So
Yeah.
I think that is something else to look out for this spring. And
Hmm.
I'm with you with Jaheim Otis. I think he's a guy who, if he doesn't do it this year, before it's all said and done,
Oh,
he is going to be an important player for Alabama on that defense.
absolutely. And talking about that defensive line real quick, I believe it's time for Justin Avoigbe to step up. I mean, he's a
Yep.
senior this year. We have been high on him pretty much since this podcast has started, since he's been there at Alabama. It's time for him to step up, and he oozes talent. I just don't know
Yep.
if it's mental right now with him, but it's time for him to make an impact on this team, and I think if he gets it right up here, he can do it this year.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy to watch out for. Tim Smith is obviously a
Yeah.
guy with plenty of talent, but Byron Young is a guy who doesn't get any recognition, and he
Hmm.
makes plays almost every game. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what Byron Young can do. I think he can be this year's version of Fedarian Mathis. So I'm excited to see what Byron Young does there. But the other position group to me, Jake, that's the biggest question mark is the wide receiver position. And
Right.
now Ja'Cory Brooks is going to miss spring practice, and like it or not, he was one of the most experienced returners of
Mhm.
this season because no more JMO, no more Slade, no more Mechie.
Mhm.
They obviously bring in Jermaine Burton, so he has a lot of SEC experience, but not really any experience with Alabama. But he's going to be with the team this spring. We saw him in the video highlights yesterday with practicing with the team. Jai Hall is a guy, but not having Brooks is big, and it's
It
big for
is.
Brooks as well because uh, there's a lot of young talent on this roster. Trayshawn Holden is a guy who's kind of been put on the back burner, but I
Mhm.
think he's a guy who can make an impact for this team. So wide receiver is a very interesting position group this spring.
Absolutely. We did bring Burton in, who, like you said, has some SEC experience. But other than that, like you said, Ja'Cory Brooks was the guy who had some experience of the returners, and there's just a lot of that again, not a numbers issue
Right.
at wide receiver. It's just talent, and not talent, but experience.
Experience. Yep.
Yeah, and so some of these guys, Christian Leary, he can step up. As you said, Jai Hall, it's time for this. Instead of tweeting all about your problems, get out on the field and make a play.
Yeah.
So it's your time. Trayshawn Holden. There's a few others coming
JoJo
in early.
Earl.
JoJo Earl, who was injured most of the season last year. So, and
Yeah.
then the guys coming in,
Yeah.
Shaz Preston and
Yeah, but
big guys.
a couple early enrollees, Jake and Kendrick Law and Aaron
Yeah,
Anderson, with
yeah,
Brooks being out, they now have a chance to move up the depth chart, and
right.
that's why it's so important for some of these guys to enroll early because now they're going to have a leg up not only on the guys that'll be coming in over the summer, but now they're going to have a chance to get a leg up over Ja'Cory Brooks, who's going to miss this spring. So
Mhm.
uh, there's a lot to be excited about at that position.
Yeah.
And another guy I'm looking forward to quarterbacks in the spring, especially the backup quarterbacks. When you have a guy returning like Bryce Young,
Mhm.
this is so important for Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson.
Right.
Jake,
Yeah.
um, we're all high on Jalen Milroe. We think he oozes with talent. We know how athletic he is,
Mhm.
but can he figure it out as a passer consistently? That's going to be fun to watch this spring. And then what can Ty Simpson bring to that quarterback room here in his first semester at Alabama? And I'm looking forward to A-Day just to see those two guys throw the football around. We know
Right.
what Bryce Young can do. There's no question about his talent. I mean, you
He's a
look.
Heisman winner.
I mean, he's the Heisman winner.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. So the
Mhm.
QB2 spot is going to be fun to watch out for. And I think that's not just going to carry on here in spring, but on into fall camp,
Mhm.
this fall. So I'm excited about Milroe and Ty Simpson as well.
Absolutely. Like you said, QB2 is going to be something to look out for and to watch for because like we said, Bryce Young is the Heisman winner, and he's arguably the number one overall pick in next year's draft, unless he just has an awful season, which I don't see happening. But who's going to step up and be his backup? That remains to be seen. And out of all the position groups, um, you know, I'm and more most interested in seeing, we already talked about, is offensive line and wide receiver, because I mean, honestly, running back, I'm not worried about with Jameer Gibbs coming in. Roydale Williams is already back out on the field. Jason McClellan's already back on the field. Those guys are recovering well. The back end of the defense, secondary is loaded. And defensive line, it's not really an issue because we have a lot of talent there, and linebackers, we already know what the linebackers can do. So, wide receiver and offensive line are the two things we need to keep an eye on and see who steps up at those positions that we need somebody to step up.
Right.
Because, I saw we was talking in another chat just about this yesterday, in another chat that I'm in. You know, most teams early on is going to be honing in on Jermaine Burton and Cameron
Hmm.
Latu. So somebody else is going to have to step up, and they know that. They're going to try to make the second, third option on the wide receivers to make a play potentially and see if they can do it. So who's going to be that second and third option for Alabama this year?
Yeah, and one thing that hasn't been talked about a lot
Mhm.
is the return of Bill O'Brien, Jake. There was a
Yeah.
lot of talk that Bill O'Brien was gonna take an NFL position. He's
Mhm.
gonna be back, Jake, and I think that's big for Bryce Young. We
Yeah.
can we can argue back and forth all day about whether we like Bill O'Brien as an offensive coordinator, but having that chemistry, having that
Mhm.
continuity with your offensive coordinator from a quarterback's perspective is huge. And
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see a tremendous improvement from Bill O'Brien as a play caller. He's having to adjust to the college game, adjust to
Mhm.
playing in the best conference in college football, the best division in college football.
Right.
So I think we're going to see a much different Bill O'Brien. I think we're going to see a different style of attack from Bill O'Brien because there's no more JMO to just throw the ball out there to him and let him run
Exactly.
underneath it. There's no
Right.
more John Mechie to let him catch a 6-yard pass and work it up for a first down.
Right.
No more having Slade Bolden sit down at the first down marker and pick up the first down. It's
Yeah.
going to be about finding different ways and probably a more wide receiver by committee, running back by
Mhm.
committee approach from Bill O'Brien in this offense. So I think you're going to see a much different offense from Alabama this year. And I think we're going to get a little glimpse of that this spring,
Yeah.
especially with bringing in Jameer Gibbs, Jake. He is a guy that is just. He's going to
Man.
remind folks of Alvin Kamara or Josh Jacobs, even the
Yeah.
way Alabama utilized Josh Jacobs in the passing game. So I'm excited to see the offense this spring, and I know not a lot of people are excited that Bill O'Brien's back, but Coach Saban's not going to keep a coach around if he don't think he can coach. So
Exactly.
I'm going to side with Nick Saban on this one and say that Bill O'Brien is a pretty solid offensive coordinator.
Oh yeah, I think he grew and learned a lot last year. He saw some of the struggles that we had. I'm sure Saban's probably taught him all off season. You remember that bad, the bad game calling you had against LSU. Our defense has to step up and make plays in order for us to win that game. You got to get better. And I think he's going to be a lot better this year. And like you said, just the chemistry, because when you change out coordinators every year, it seems like Alabama has done it. It kind of plays in the psyche of a quarterback a little bit, but having him back, for Bryce Young is going to be huge, I believe, in my mind. So, and I think Bill O'Brien's going to be a lot better this year. I
Yeah.
think he's starting to understand the college game and how fast it is. It's not like NFL, So he's going to be all right.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. I don't want to say excited to have Bill O'Brien back, but I'm not upset that he's back. So
Right. But
because
who else are you going to have? I mean, who else are you going to
yeah,
get?
I mean
You know.
exactly,
You know.
exactly. But hey, that's really going to do it for our spring. Kind of, we're really focused on the offensive line for this video, but we kind
Mhm.
of dived into a little bit of the entire team here as we start spring practice. I'm excited about it, Jake. It's so much fun to finally have football back, even for just a brief few weeks. I'm excited for the 8A game. I know it's just a
Yeah.
scrimmage, but you can really find out who the coaches have their eyes on this spring. So it's going to be fun to watch how the offensive line develops, who steps up at the wide receiver position, and
Mhm.
and maybe who is going to be the guy beside Henry To'oTo'o. I think it's going to be Jalen Moody, but Jake
Yeah.
Deontay Lawson is a talented young player. Demoy
Yeah.
Kennedy is a
Mhm.
talented young player. So there's some maybe a little bit of competition there at that position as well. So there's a lot
Absolutely.
to look forward to this spring. Excited about it. Cannot wait for September to get here for us to have some real college football. But we have a
Yeah.
lot to look forward to as Alabama fans right now. The baseball team's playing, the softball team's playing, the
Mhm.
men's basketball tournament will be starting up next week. So there's a lot of action going on right now, and we say it all the time. It's fun to be an Alabama fan because they're pretty much really good in every sport. So
That's insane.
it's an exciting time, and we have a lot
Yeah.
to talk about here.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, A-Day is just about a month away now. I think it's April the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. So and you talked about who's going to step up. I mean, we saw last year Ajah Hall just absolutely shined in
Yeah.
in this game, but didn't show up in the season. So, you know, somebody's is a chance for somebody to step up, but you got to step up when the season matters too.
You want to hear my opinion on what happened with the Jai Hall just real quick?
Yeah,
We
go
all
ahead.
we all saw what happened with him in the spring game.
Hmm.
I think what happened is maybe not so much that he got a big head, but then Alabama brought in JMO over the
Right.
summer. And I think that maybe played into the psyche of a Jai Hall, and it maybe changed the course of his development, in fall camp. So that's something to remember. I think we looked at a Jai Hall as a guy that was going to contribute,
Right.
and then over the summer they bring in Jamison Williams, and we all saw how special he was. So
Right.
I think that might maybe played into the psyche of a Jai
Mhm.
Hall. So,
That's a good
uh,
point.
but we're going to be looking at that wide receiver position real closely this spring, and the offensive line as well as the entire team. So there's a lot to be excited about.
Absolutely, man. Football is the bread and butter here in the South, but as you mentioned, being an Alabama fan is fun because we have so much talent and so many sports that are so good right now. So, but Alabama, football's king here. So that's
Yep.
what we're most excited about. So I love talking about Alabama football.
Yep. All right. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Like we mentioned, we want to hear from you guys. Jump in the comments and let us know who you think the starting 5 offensive line is going to be, or at least for right now, in your opinion. And we would love
Right.
to kind of interact with you guys there in the comment section. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. If you're not already, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. I'll tell you what, guys, if we can reach 1,000 subscribers by the start of the college football season, Jake and myself will do a live video reaction after every single football game. How does that sound?
Yeah,
I just threw that out there.
we can do it. Do it.
So
When
if
the
if
game
you
ends at 11 p.m., we'll be here live to do it.
we'll be live. We may be
And
half
drunk,
asleep.
probably. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's
So
do
if
it.
you're not already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, give us a thumbs up, and jump in the comment section. For
Yeah.
Stacey Blackwood and Jake Thomas, this has been the Tide Talk Podcast. Until next time, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.